Yes, the Sharks were more competitive. Yes, they're also the worst team in the NHL. But what did we actually learn about the San Jose Sharks in the 24-25 season?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be discussing what do we actually learn from this season. So we've spent the last couple of days looking at kind of where the Sharks got better, where the Sharks got worse, what Mike Greer's kind of early plans are for this offseason. So we're going to kind of wrap it up and look at why I think the offense is ready to take a next step after what we saw from this season, why the defense needs some attention this offseason, why I think goaltending has potential there, but still needs some help. So before we get to all that, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And I want to start with the offense. One, because offense is cool. You have to be able to score goals to win games. Last time I checked, we know that you're not going to be a long-term successful team by winning every game 7-5, and you need to be able to stop the puck occasionally and stuff. But I think though for the Sharks, as they're go into this off season, right? And as you start to, we kind of put together our wish list and what we think the Sharks need to focus on, and we're gonna start doing that next week and start looking at free agency next week. And but right, we need to kind of have the conversation of like, well, what did we learn and what can we expect going forward? And the offense, I think, has a lot of signs and pieces to get ready to take that next step, right? And yes, this offense was bad this year, like one of the lowest scoring offenses, at 2.5 goals per game, and an improvement from last year, but still, like, this offense still at many nights struggled to score, more than 3 goals a game. And that's fine. Right. And you look at the talent on the team. You had 18-year-old Macklin Celebrini. You have 19-year-old Will Smith, William Macklin in his second season. You added some pieces this last offseason and, in Tyler Toffoli and Alex Wenberg, but you also traded some big pieces in Fabian Zetterlund and Mikael Granlund. So there was some definite ups and downs. But looking at this offense, I think there's a lot of pieces there that you feel really excited that are, one, going to be long-term pieces, and two, you can be the foundation of a really good offense here. And I think the biggest thing that we learned is Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith and William Macklin. I think these guys are ready to go offensively. And right, we saw plenty of flashes and we saw, a lot of sustained success from these guys. And I know at the end of the season, Macklin kind of wore down a little bit, and, and like Will Smith had his issues at the beginning of the season. But overall, like, I don't know how you look at how both those players played throughout the season and go, yeah, I don't think these guys are very good, or I don't think these guys are going to be the answer to what the Sharks are looking for, right? And there's still questions, right? And Will Smith is, can you do it for a full season? Can you be a center? Are you going to be a winger, right? Michael Celebrini, okay, like, can you take the next step, right? Can you be a full 200-foot player? William Macklin, right? Can you start scoring more goals? Can you be a 20 to 25 goal scorer instead of a, in the kind of mid to, 15 or 17 goal scorer, right? Like, all questions around these players. Can Tyler Toffoli continue to play well? But I feel you have enough evidence from what we've seen from these guys that you feel like you can start to move forward, right? And start surrounding these players with talent. And talent that is NHL talent right now. And I'm not saying go out and, give Mitch Marner 7 years at $14.5 million. Like, Mitch Marner is a great player. Would love to have Mitch Marner on my team. I know some people not the biggest fans of Marner, but still, like, Marner's a like the belle of the ball when it comes to this year's free agency crop. I'm not saying go out and give him a max deal type of thing, but add good NHL players. I can already hear the people saying, well, what about all these prospects? Like, being realistic. Whatever. Quentin Musty. I love Quentin Musty. I think Quentin Musty is going to be a very good NHL player. Quentin Musty is not ready to be a NHL producer right now. Like, Quentin Musty, great career in the OHL. He's also been bigger, faster, stronger than everybody's played with his entire life. Now that he's going to be playing against professionals, he's going to have to learn how to play against professionals, the guys who are also the same size, stronger than him, faster than him. And I'm not saying Quentin, hear me, listen to me. I'm not saying like Quentin Musty isn't going to be able to do that, but realistically, Quentin Musty is not ready to be doing that in the NHL right now. And I don't think it's fair to guys like Smith and Celebrini and Eklund and Toffoli and, go down the list to basically just kind of sit around and wait for guys like Musty and Haltonen and, whomever, even like Igor Chernyshov. Like, it's not fair to just sit there and wait for these guys to be NHL ready. When they're ready, they can come take a job, right? We see it happen all the time. Players take other players. That is part of the cycle, right? Tyler Toffoli eventually is going to lose his job to a guy like Quentin Musty or Igor Chernyshov or whomever, right? All these veteran Alex Wenberg is eventually going to lose his job to, Phil Beestead or whomever, right? That's all going to happen. But to sit and go into next season and just be like, we like our team, but we're waiting for our prospects. It's not like you're almost holding back the franchise in that capability. And again, I'm not saying go out and give Marner $1 bajillion for 7 years or right, like you have to spend in the top end, but you need to continue to surround Celebrini, Smith, Eklund with other viable pieces and give these guys more pieces and NHL caliber players to play with, right? Like, you look at the bottom 6 for the Sharks and it's just kind of a hot mess of dudes. And I think for the Sharks going to this offseason, revamping this whole third line should be like right up there with the priorities of what they need to do. Because again, Celebrini, Smith, you feel great about the direction of those guys. Eklund, you feel really good, right? You better feel good. You're about ready to potentially be giving Eklund a big contract here soon in the next year. But just going back out there with your Delandrias, your Grundstroms, your Goodrows, Ostapchuks, or whoever else you want to throw out there in the bottom 6 and just saying we're good guys. Like, let's run it back and hope that Celebrini and Smith can just drag us forward. That's not fair. And that's not putting those guys in a position to succeed. So, yes, Sharks have a lot of uber talented players, but that a lot of players in the NHL, a lot of uberly talented players in the prospect system that are going to be contributing at some point. That shouldn't stop you from trying to acquire more good players, right? I know there's a rule you can only have 2 good lines in the NHL, right? Then you got to throw out grinders and fighters and forechecker, like all that stuff. But still, the Sharks should be interested in trying to surround Celebrini and Smith with as much talented players as they possibly can. And then the hope is Mike Grier is good enough at his job where he can start to, these contracts start to expire. And you hope that you're kind of getting off these contracts when, one, you have to start paying Celebrini and Smith. And then two, you're hoping your guys like Chernyshov and Haltonen and Musty and, again, whichever forwards or that you want to pick, they're starting to be ready to make an impact when these other contracts are, you're able to get off them either through trades or they just naturally expire. Like that's the hope, right? But I don't think you can go into this offseason and feel like we're ready. Our offense is good enough right now that'll just naturally progress. I think you need to go out and get more pieces. That way you can have an offense that goes from bottom of the barrel to league average, right? And I think that's a realistic jump, especially with Celebrini and Smith and Eklund and all the pieces they have. I think that is a realistic jump if they play this offseason right. So we're going to look at the defense next. And again, there's pieces there, but if you want this team to kind of make that next jump, this is where you need to focus. So we'll get to that here. Just 1 second. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into a gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles like EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Plus, of course, you have 4K streaming, right? Watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes with your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. And with Fire TV 4K devices, it's more affordable and easier to travel with than ever. So you can take it for your kids. You go to you're traveling this summer. You can bring the Xbox without having to bring the Xbox, plug it in. You're good to go. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube, third generation. All right, before we continue, we look at the defense. Do, of course, want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe. Like I said, we got plenty of fun stuff to talk about this offseason. We're going to be starting to kind of look at free agency next week. We have plenty of draft profiles on the books. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And, of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. All right, the defense. And while it did take some, we talked about on was that Tuesday's episode, we talked about how defense did make some strides this season, right? From going again from one of the worst defenses that we have seen in modern NHL history to just like a bad defense. But Mike Grier, and especially with the addition of Askarov, we'll spend some time talking about Askarov here in a little bit. Right, you expect Askarov to be in the NHL next year, and whether he's the opening starter or not, that doesn't really matter at the point. Like he's going to be starting, his fair share of games next season. You can't go into this offseason again feeling like let's run it back, baby, on the blue line. And I know the Sharks there's going to be some challenges here with how you kind of navigate this blue line with the contracts they have. The good news is you don't have any long-term contracts, right? Looking at the blue line, right? everybody's contract is set to expire after the 25-26 season. Some of these contracts are more movable than others, right? Marc-Edouard Vlasic, like that contract's not going anywhere. Nobody wants Marc-Edouard Vlasic at $7 million as a 38-year-old defenseman. Like, that's fine. And if Marc-Edouard Vlasic is your extremely overpaid seventh defenseman who, plays occasionally because somebody's hurt, or Ryan Warsofsky, wants to sit a guy or whatever it is, like that's perfectly fine. Like I would not mind that one bit. I thought Vlasic, playing limited minutes last season, I thought he looked pretty solid, to be honest. Like it's not the end of the world if Vlasic is basically pushing you towards the cap floor, and not like he's not keeping you from, like, you're not like, I got to play Marc-Edouard Vlasic over, Sam Dickinson or Shakir Mukhamadullin or whoever like you want to have in the Sharks lineup, right? But Mario Ferraro, right? Timothy Liljegren, Vincent Desharnais, Henry Thrun, all these guys are in the last year of their deals. Shakir Mukhamadullin, Jack Thompson, both are RFAs that you can completely control their rights. And, I mentioned Sam Dickinson. Yeah, there's a lot of names there, but none of these players, I mean, Mukhamadullin and Dickinson, and like none of those players are guys, excluding those two guys, but guys that you feel like we got to keep here long term, right? If the Sharks trade Henry Thrun this offseason, I'm not saying that they would, but would it surprise you? Maybe. Like it honestly wouldn't surprise me. If the Sharks traded Mario Ferraro, would it surprise you? I mean, yeah, I know there's talk of him maybe being the potential captain of the year, but like, I don't think it wouldn't surprise me. Like none of these guys are holding you back from doing something more aggressive and trying to find upgrade at any of these spots, right? Like none of these guys are guys that you feel like are, and again, Mukhamadullin, I feel like is a building block piece, right? Sam Dickinson, we don't even know if Sam Dickinson is going to make the roster, but just assuming he's going to get an opportunity to make the roster. Building block piece, right? Just won the OHL Defenseman of the Year. Yes, over Zane Barek. That's Zane Barek. Pretty good player. Pretty good little player in Sam Dickinson. But none of these other guys, like Timothy Liljegren, yeah, I know you traded a third-round pick for him, but if you can find a better player, and like I fully expect Liljegren to be on the roster next year just because they only have, a handful of right-handed guys. Like none of these guys are holding you back from going out and trying to find better guys and helping to slot these guys kind of better into where you would want them to be in your lineup, right? Do you really want Mario Ferraro playing first pairing minutes every night? Probably not. Does Mario Ferraro do it because they literally don't have much else? That's why, do you want Timothy Liljegren running your power play? Probably not. Does he do it because you don't really have anybody else? Yeah, that's why. So I do expect, and Mike Greer, we heard it on Monday's episode, right? Mike Greer said we need to add to this blue line. So just because there's a lot of names back there right now, there's not a lot of names of note. And none of these guys are holding you back from doing whatever you want to do this offseason. And I do fully expect if Mike Greer spends money, which again, I know he said, I'm not going, I don't feel thrilled about spending, a lot of term or whatever. If he does, this is going to be the area that he does it. Because again, yes, I know you have Sam Dickinson and you might have Matthew Schaefer coming, and you have some players that you feel good about. Luca Cagnoni had an outstanding season in the AHL. There's plenty of players that you feel good about their direction, but none of those guys are helping you next year. Maybe Cagnoni's helping you, maybe Dickinson, but still, then those guys are going to be rookies next year. Rookie defensemen in the NHL. It's a tough position to play, man. Like, there's a reason why Mukhamadullin, who is also a first-round pick, yes, granted, later first-round pick, and a lot of people a little surprised when they picked Mukhamadullin where they did, but still, there's a reason why Mukhamadullin has taken a while to kind of simmer and marinate and learn his role. And even like a guy like Dickinson, who I'm very high on. And I think Dickinson, if the Sharks draft Matthew Schaefer, I think Dickinson is just going to be their second best defenseman. And I've watched a lot of Sam Dickinson over the past year. I really yes, he has his issues, but I still think Sam Dickinson is too good of a player to kind of overcome some of those issues. But again, like we just talked about the offense, you can't sit around and wait for these guys to come take jobs. Yes, you want to have some flexibility, and the Sharks have plenty of flexibility, like I just said. All of these guys here, none of these guys are under contract after the 25-26 season. That's about as flexible as you could be, right? You could have a brand new, if you really want to, a year from now, or 18 months from now, you can have a completely different blue line from start to finish, 1 through 6. Your blue line could be completely different than what it looks like right now. But you have to add talent into this defensive group, right? It's just, yes, they made improvements this year. It's just not good enough right now. And especially with what you expect is going to be a rookie goaltender and Yaroslav Askarov getting at least half the starts next season. And you have a young offense up front. I actually wouldn't mind if they got a few veterans who can, again, I'm not saying sign dudes for 7 years, but if you can get some guys who are signed for 3 or 4 years while your Sam Dickinsons get ready to go, while your Luca Caniones continue to marinate, while your Matthew Schaefers or whomever else you drafted in this year's draft, while those guys are developing, and again, they're going to, come and take a job from one of these guys here. You rather have too many good players than not enough, and the Sharks just don't have enough good players on their blue line right now. So going to be a huge off season for my career in there. So we're going to move over to the goaltending, which again, a position that you're going to see completely different than from what it was the start of this season when you had Vitek Vanacek and Mackenzie Blackwood as your opening night goalies. Completely different, but I feel like there's a lot of potential there. So we're going to discuss the goaltending and what we learned this season next. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as you get closer to puck drop. With last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. I've used Game Time for a bunch of different things, going to the Sharks games, going to Barracuda games. If you want to catch a Giants game, Warriors game, comedy, whatever it is that your little heart desires and you need tickets for, Game Time's got you covered. Their all-in pricing shows you total costs up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. And the app even shows you panoramic seat views, so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, before we finish up and we talk about the goaltending, and again, there's a lot of potential and a lot of promise coming here really, really soon. Hi, Yaroslav Askarov. Do want to, of course, thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. It is a great tool if you want to kind of just get caught up on what's happening in all the playoff games. Every night, every game, till a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, the goaltending, which we talked about on Wednesday's show, it was a disaster this year, right? An absolute disaster at times. And we talked about Mike Greer and his, if you want to stealth tank a season, goaltending, baby, is the way to go. But I feel like the goaltending is going to be much different going into next season, right? Talked a little bit about even yesterday too with the Matt Davis signing, but Yaroslav Askarov, and we've talked about it. The only thing he has left to prove right now is playing in these big playoff games, and of course, I'm recording this before the Barracuda playoff game, but like you feel like you have a dude in Yaroslav Askarov, and yes, he's going to go through his ups and downs in his first full season in NHL next year, and you saw some of those ups and downs even this year, right? And yes, he's going to make you want to pull out your hair sometimes when he plays the puck. But for the most part, you feel like you have an answer in net, a long-term solution in net that the Sharks just haven't really had since they acquired Martin Jones, right? When they went out and traded a first-round pick for Martin Jones, and you felt like, okay, we got somebody for the next couple seasons. This year, right? You've acquired Askarov, who's much younger. Like he signed for the next 2 seasons. You let him marinate and percolate behind a very good, can be very temperamental Barracuda team, and he has shown for the most part he's ready to go. Yeah, I know you got to find a backup, but as weird as it sounds, I really trust Mike Greer and his staff to go find a competent backup, right? You look at getting the Mackenzie Blackwood trade. You traded a 6th-round pick for Mackenzie Blackwood, and then you turn around and flipped him for a 2nd-round pick. You don't think the Sharks can go out and find another goalie whose value is really low right now? And I know maybe people are saying, well, you just traded for Georgiev, right? And that didn't work out for you. Guys, part of the deal to get that 2nd-round pick was Colorado trying to dump Alexander Georgiev. Sharks also, again, tank commander specialty right there in Alexander Georgiev. Whether it's free agency or whether it's through trade or whatever, I have faith in Mike Greer and his team to go find a backup goalie or a goalie who can at least split the starts for the next couple seasons. And this whoever they sign doesn't need to be signed for a 5-year deal at whatever $5 million. No, go get a guy who can be here for the next couple seasons, and then you kind of see what happens in 2 years. Type of when you're hoping by then Askarov is ready to take on a bigger role and be a 60 start guy, 55, 60 start guy, and then you don't have to really you're hoping that your backup goaltender is more of a $1 million type of goalie instead of having to kind of spend a little bit more on him. So and then you feel like Romanov. I feel like if Romanov has to come in and play 5, 6, 7 games a year, and because of injuries or whatever, I feel fine with that, the way he's going. Gabe Carrier, I feel like he's well on his way. Matt Davis, there's so many exciting guys in the Sharks goalie pipeline, and they're not all going to be stars, right? But you found answers for your questions, and this was something the Sharks struggled with a long time, right? When did you feel like, as a Sharks fan, just sit back and think, when's the last time you felt this good about your goalie pipeline? Even not even including Askarov, Romanov, a guy you found, a free agent, unsigned free agent that you found in Russia, came over, and look how well he has developed in 2 years here. Dude battles, super athletic. Dude battles, fights his, he fights every play. Gabe Carrier, college player. As soon as he started in the ECHL, it was winning awards, goaltender, rookie of the month, goaltender of the month. Came in, has already gotten earned an NHL contract. Yes, a little bit of circumstances, but still, Gabe Carrier, you feel pretty solid about Romanov and Carrier going into for the Barracudas net next year. Do you maybe want a 3rd guy there? Maybe. Okay, that's fine. That's a discussion worth having, but still, you feel solid about those guys. Matt Davis wanted basically anything you could ask him to win at Denver. He's done it for them. Don't you feel like that dude's going to come in and compete and work his brains out, like just work and tussle and try to make the most of his opportunity. Yeah, I feel super excited about the Sharks goaltending pipeline, and that doesn't even include some of the players that they've drafted, right? Who have some time, gonna need to marinate and stuff, but you have time, especially with a KHL player and a college player. You have all the time in the world for those guys to go stay where they're at and marinate, and then you're hoping again, right? The whole timeline thing, as Askarov is ready to maybe get that big contract, maybe Carrier or Romanov or some of these other guys start to kind of move out of the system or move up or whatever it is. These other young guys are ready to kind of come in and take their place. It's all part of like what Mike Grier has done with his goaltending. Like as we focus on the forwards and all this other group, but small miracle at how Grier has turned around this goaltending pipeline rather quickly, and that shouldn't even stop you at this draft. Go draft it. And I'm not saying go draft like the best player, like wherever, I forget the kid's name who's supposed to be a Ravenbach or whatever, who's supposed to be a potential end of the first round player. I'm not saying go draft him, but like if they go draft another one, I'm not surprised. You got to keep replenishing the pipeline and keep it moving forward. So, but overall, I think what we've learned from this season, right, is the offense is ready to take another step, but still needs more pieces. The defense needs the most attention. Like this offseason should be very much upgrading the defense. And the goaltending there's a lot of potential there, and you're gonna need to go find a backup. Maybe two guys, right? Kind of NHL caliber or high-end AHL caliber guys. Like you need, but there's so much potential there for the Sharks. And so that's gonna be it for me today. We'll be back. So we are doing a postcast after every Barracuda game. So Tuesday night, Saturday night. I think the next game is Monday, game 3, if necessary. Monday night, there will be a live postcast on YouTube where we'll hang out and we'll talk Barracuda only. So I'm not going to answer like Sharks questions, but we will be talking about the Barracuda and they're reacting to their games. We'll be back on Monday as we kind of start to dive into free agency. We'll kind of take big picture looks at it before we start to kind of hone in on these players, which I think makes the most sense. Draft profiles coming next week as well. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until tonight, this weekend, whenever you see me next, bye, friends.